everyone. Welcome to our webinar, What Are Students Looking For? Results from Our Research. So just before we start, I'd like to go through a couple of housekeeping announcements. This webinar is being recorded today. We will share the recording with you shortly after the webinar so that you can revisit any key insights and share these with your colleagues. And we'll also be using the Q&A function today to capture all of your questions. So please feel free to use this if you have any queries or if you'd like us to dive a little deeper into a specific point. I'd now like to hand over to our Vice President of Marketing, Dr. Mirko Wiedenhorn, to officially start our webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liv, and welcome everyone to today's session, where we'll talk a lot about data. So I hope you're excited to spend about an hour with me talking about data and the results of our student survey. Now, before I do that, I did just want to provide a little bit of background on what we do here at Ready Education. So we're focused on providing the platform that students use every day to be successful. In fact, our solutions often see about 90% use of all students, and many of those using it every day. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the results in the survey around that as well. Now, we do work with clients from around the world, as you can see, with many of those in the UK as well as in the US. As you can tell from my accent, I am based in the US. But we work with clients in over 29 countries and support over 7 million learners here at Ready Education. And the way we do that is our platforms really focus on student engagement and success. So whether that's helping them foster community and creating that sense of belonging that is so important to ensuring that they retain and persist and complete their degree, to supporting the holistic development of the student. So think about the extracurricular activities and other elements that happen outside of the classroom that are so important throughout their college or university journey. Help them prepare for their career so that as they graduate, they are finding positions that are of interest to them and relevant. And then finally, all of that taken together increases their likelihood to retain and complete their degree and then graduate successfully. Now, the way we do that is through two solutions. Most of you may be familiar with our MyDay solution. That is our flagship solution in the UK market. It is really a centralized student portal, allows targeted communication, dashboards, and much, much more to make sure students are getting the information that they need when they need it. And then we also have our campus groups solution, which is student engagement focused with a very robust event management and ticketing platform, supporting club and group administration for students, surveys, feedback tools, and much more. With that, I do want to move on to the webinar or the topic of the webinar, but I did just want to provide you a little bit of background on who we are at Ready Education. Now let's go ahead and dive in. And just a reminder to Liv's point earlier, if you do have questions as I go through the data, please feel free to use the Q&A panel to submit those. And I'll do my best to keep an eye on them as we go. Liv may jump in and make sure that I see a question, and we'll certainly try to save some time at the end of today's session to cover any questions that we didn't get to. So what we focused on with the survey is that we wanted to identify, well, there were three primary reasons for the survey, I should say. One, and for me, the primary one is really gaining a deeper understanding of student perception. What are students thinking? How do they feel about engagement? And what are their expectations of technology? That helps us then provide actionable data to adjust not only our strategies, but hopefully you find some interesting and relevant elements here to help you think a little bit differently about strategies that you're employing at your institution. And then finally, we also use it internally for our product team as they look at our product roadmap, as they consider the various elements that we're providing in our solutions, and looking at ways that they can continue to enhance that. For the survey, we did have 500 responses from students specifically in the UK. We had about 1,500 responses overall, but for today's session, I'm going to focus specifically on those for our UK responses. And then let me tell you a little bit more about the respondents. So as I mentioned, 500 further and higher education students in the UK responded to the survey. The survey was conducted in October of last year, so it's very recent data. And we did conduct it using a national survey platform. so that it was broad-based and it went to any students within college or universities in the UK. It was not just students with clients who we partner with. By institution type, you can see that about 1/3 of the students were at a college. The majority were at a university. And then there was a breakdown of some other elements like technical college, graduate or professional school, and other. And then one group that I'll talk about a little bit more throughout today's session is there are about 1 in 4 students who said they were only somewhat likely or even less likely than that to remain at the institution and complete their degree. And we know that's a really important group to think about and focus on as we look at opportunities to enhance the student experience. When we looked at year of study, you can see generally there's broad representation here with the majority of students either in their first or second year, and then about 1 in 5 in their third year, and a small percentage in a graduate or program or a professional student. But this was certainly sufficient data to conduct some analyses. Where I want to start today is with some of the highlights of students' overall educational experience. And what we did here is we presented them with a Likert scale on level of agreement. So from strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree with 5 options. And you'll see that throughout the statistics that I share today. But here there's generally positive news. So first of all, about 3 in 4 students feel that the institution that they are studying at is a good fit for them, which is again, good news. About 7 out of 10 feel the institution really cares about supporting them. That's an important element as we look at sense of belonging. And we know from all of the research done and the literature that sense of belonging is a key element to ensuring that students remain at the institution and complete their degree. About 2 out of 3 would choose the institution again. And then about 6 out of 10 feel that they're a part of the community at that institution. Again, community is one of those indicators of sense of belonging, likelihood to remain at the institution and complete their degree. So again, positive news here. What I want to switch to now is talking about some of the challenges that students faced over the last 12 months when the survey was conducted, and some opportunities that they identified, and then other opportunities that we see in the data. Let me start, though, with the most pressing challenges that students identified in the survey responses. And again, I'm curious if any of these are surprising to you or if this is what you might have expected. So feel free to drop that in the Q&A as well. Feeling overwhelmed or anxious was the first, the challenge that was identified by the majority of students, with about 3 in 10 identifying that as a key challenge over their last term, followed by developing good study habits and time management. And then about 1 in 4 students mentioned staying motivated to continue their education as a challenge, followed by about the same percentage who identified debt or financial stress. And then in case you're curious, the 5th one was finding a job or confirming other post-graduation plans. Managing mental health and wellness was a little bit lower than I might have expected at about 23% of students. And that's compared to some survey work that I had done during the pandemic or shortly after the pandemic, where that challenge was significantly higher than we see in this survey. So in some ways, that's good news because mental health and wellness is not as high of a challenge as it had been then. But again, feeling overwhelmed or anxious about academic workload or expectations is one of those really important ones that I think we can all take away and think about, are there opportunities to improve that for students a little bit, even if it's just making sure that they understand what the academic workload and expectations are, that can already help them feel less overwhelmed. Now, I did look briefly at those who were less likely to complete. And that included, it was interesting, there was a significant difference here because finding a group of friends was the most mentioned among those students who were less likely to complete. And that was by 1 out of 4 students, followed by staying motivated, followed by finding a job. and then managing mental health. So we're starting to already see a notable difference among students who are not as likely to complete their degree. And I'll talk more about that population later. I did also want to break this out between college and university students. For college students, the the I think in general the four stayed similar, but for college students, staying motivated was first, followed by feeling overwhelmed or anxious about academic workload, developing good study habits and time management, and then managing mental health did creep up to the fourth spot among college students. For university students, and this goes to Jay's point a little bit, uh, the first one was feeling overwhelmed or anxious about academic workload or expectations, followed by debt and or other financial stress, with 1 in 3 students mentioning that as a key challenge. Again, for university students, so that population of around, I think it was 260 university students who completed the survey, and then staying motivated and developing good study habits and time management were rounded out the top 4 there. All right, moving on. Now we're switching perspectives a little bit because we asked the survey respondents, what can your institution do to help you and your classmates be more likely to complete your degree? And you can see number 1 was providing more academic support services, such as tutoring or mentoring programs. And that was about 4 in 10 students. Now, when I talk to institutions, colleges, and universities, a lot of you offer many of these programs, and sometimes it's raising students' awareness and making sure that students know that these programs are offered, I think is perhaps part of the challenge there, rather than the need to provide more than you're already providing. Second, as you can see, is improving the accessibility of mental health and counseling services. So there, you may be able to look at when those services are offered, or again, is it a matter of students not being aware that those services are being offered, or where they can go to get counseling services? Third, and this ties in with what we saw in the previous question around challenges, enhancing career services and internship opportunities was mentioned by about 1 in 3 students. And then finally, providing more social activities in a fun environment by about 1 in 4 students. Again, here, I would argue that many of you are providing a lot of social activities and a fun environment, but it's all perception here. So again, sometimes it's just making sure that students are aware of what is happening at the institution and on campus. I did look at college versus university students here, and the top 4 stayed the same. The order was slightly different. For those who are at a college, they mentioned providing more social activities in a fun environment as the 3rd most important. So there may be an opportunity there. And among universities, enhancing career services and internships moved to 2nd, followed by mental health and counseling. And then similarly, for those less likely to complete, career services and internships was mentioned as the 2nd highest opportunity. So as you take this data and be thinking about, can we highlight in other ways, especially what is being offered around career services and internships? Is there an opportunity to do perhaps a little bit more than the institution is doing? From the survey data, at least, it would indicate that students are looking for more of that, which, given economy worldwide, that may not be too surprising. But again, something to keep top of mind as you look at how you're communicating about existing services, and are there ways to do a little bit more in certain areas. One other element that I wanted to touch on, which was not in the top 4, but was a close 5th, is helping students feel like they're part of the community at their institution, was mentioned by about 1 in 5 students. And again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this is really critical, as that higher sense of belonging is tied to a higher likelihood that students will remain at the institution. So that's one of those elements that I look at when I look at data like this. And again, that highlights continued opportunities for institutions to raise awareness of available services, looking at ways to enhance them, but also then looking at making sure that they're giving the students the opportunity, or multiple ways to feel like they're part of the community, whether that's through technology or in a number of other ways. And again, if you have questions or comments, feel free to use either the chat or the Q&A. I now want to switch and move into our next section, which is focused on engagement, community, and support. So some of what we just talked about when we looked at the opportunities that students identified, but I'd like to dive into that in a little bit more detail. So first of all, to set the stage a little bit, we did ask students which of the following have they done in the past 12 months at their institution. And 3 out of 4 students consider themselves to be at least somewhat involved. And only about 1 in 5 did not engage in any of these 5 ways that you see on your screen. In fact, 7 out of 10 did at least one thing, whether it was joining a new club, attending a club meeting, or attending an event on campus. So that's a high percentage. That's a good data point because as I think we all know, as students are doing more and getting involved on campus, they're more likely to be more positive about their academic and university and college experience, and also more likely to continue their studies. Now, we asked also about how do they find out about student organizations of interest? Where are they getting the information from? And perhaps this may not be surprising, but social media was number 1. So over 4 out of 10 students pointed out that they're getting it from social media. That might be the institutional social media account, but more likely it's from their friends or their network sharing information. And then this was followed closely by friends. So when I take that together, a lot of this is still personal networks and word of mouth that is allowing them, or is how they find out about student organizations of interest. Email communications here was third at about 1 in 3 students. So there is still value to email. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then similarly, a campus app or website was fourth here, again, about 1 in 3 students. When I combine friends and social media across the surveyed population, about 6 in 10 students cited one or the other. So again, it does speak to the importance of that personal network and word of mouth, helping students identify organizations of interest that they might be interested in joining. Breaking it down between college and university students, for college students, friends was first, and social media was notably lower. For university students, social media was the highest, with 1 out of 2 students mentioning social media as the way that they hear about student organizations of interest. And a campus app or the website moved to third highest with about 4 in 10 students. So the campus app and website is a little bit more important among university students than college students for finding out about student organizations of interest. Similarly, we asked a question around events. So how do they learn about events to attend at their institution, whether that's speakers, social events, and so forth? And here, interestingly, email communications was at the top of the list, followed by word of mouth, so likely friends, and then social media, like we saw a minute ago. But email clearly is more important for the student population to find out about specific events. And taken together, email communications or word of mouth was mentioned by over 7 in 10 students who responded to the survey. So that's a notable difference. Similar responses between university and college students. For universities, social media was a little bit more important, while announcements in class were more important among college students, but not significant shifts in the data there. So let's dive even deeper. As I break out the data a little bit more, notable is that about 1 in 10 students did not engage last year, meaning they didn't participate in any activity, but they expressed interest in being active. While that's not a high percentage, it's still 1 in 10 students. So again, it speaks to, are there opportunities to raise students' awareness of all of the ways that they can be involved and getting them to take that next step. Now, some of that, again, may be if their friends are participating, then they are more likely to participate, but thinking about ways that you can communicate some of this information. And then the other element that I wanted to talk about a little bit here is that more than half of the respondents found or stated that it would be either extremely or very helpful to have an extracurricular transcript. In case you're not as familiar with that, the concept of an extracurricular transcript, and we did define this in the question, is that students are able to see what clubs, groups, events, and other activities they're involved in at the institution, providing them an easy way to present that information on their curriculum vitae. Or at least use it as they're drafting their curriculum vitae and going through interviews for positions after graduation. If that's not something you're providing, it may be something worth looking at as another way to support students and also allow them to see what they are doing outside of the classroom. And that will also help them identify skills that they might be gaining outside of the academic arena that can actually help benefit them as they pursue a career. The next element is around a student experience platform. Our extracurricular transcripts is part of that. Again, finding out about events and organizations of interest are part of that. And what's interesting here is that 38% of all of the students surveyed use this type of platform at least once a day to see what events are happening, to sign up for events, to get information about what's going on at their institution. That's nearly 4 out of every 10 students. When I look at those who use this type of platform several times a week, that's another 20%. So now we're at 6 out of 10 students use a platform like this at least multiple times a week. So it is a key way that students are getting information. And here there was no difference between college and university students. The percentage was nearly identical. I think there was a 1% difference. And only 4% of respondents don't use this type of tool at all. Now, having said that, about 10% of respondents indicated their institution does not have this type of tool available. If it did, they would be likely to use it. So overall, again, look at what tools and programs and platforms you have available. And if you're not paying as much attention to your student experience platform or your app, institutional app where you're sharing details about what's happening, it may be worth investing more time and resources there because students are clearly interested in using that as a key way that they receive information. I want to talk a little bit more about building community now. I've talked about this a little bit, but as you see this come out, generally there are indications that students have the opportunity to build community. 7 in 10 agree or strongly agree that they have the support they need from their family and that they are able to interact with people from different backgrounds. Those are really important elements as we look at the reasons that support community. And again, in the literature, community is deeply tied to a sense of belonging. So if students feel like they are part of a community and have the support they need, they are more likely to persist and complete their degree. Now, also good news is that nearly that same percentage feel that there are professors and staff members at the institution who care about them. And then nearly over 6 in 10, I should say, feel included in a circle of friends at the institution. And that term circle of friends is another one that when looking at the literature, it's directly tied to sense of belonging and therefore retention and student success. So this is generally really good news that a high percentage of students in the survey are answering the community-related questions in a positive way. What I wanted to do is look again at that population, though, who were less likely to complete their degree. So it was a population of about 140 students. And take a look at what that slide looks like now and what those bars look like. So we went from percentages in the 70s to about half of the students indicating that all of these, agreeing with these different elements. So 5 in 10 feel they have the support they need from their family. Similar percentage state that they are able to interact with people from different backgrounds. Again, half of them feel there are professors and staff who care about them. These are still good percentages, so it's half the population of students, but it's a notable difference from what we saw earlier when we looked at the overall population of students. And then just over 4 in 10 feel they're included in a circle of friends at the institution. So looking at that population that responded to the survey as somewhat likely or less likely than that to continue their studies, there is a notable gap here. And I think it's something to think about as you look at ways to potentially support that population. If you are conducting surveys at your institution and have some of these questions or similar questions within the survey uh, platform, you may be able to use some of those responses to proactively identify some students who are less likely to perhaps complete their degree. Again, something to be thinking about and ways that you may be able to reach out to that population and identify additional ways to ensure that they feel like they're part of the community at your institution. Continuing with building community, I just talked about this a little bit. I talked about the 62% who feel like they are included or they have a circle of friends. 20% of the overall population does not feel included in a circle of friends. So again, that would be the group to try to focus on to ensure that they have easy ways to build community, whether it is through what you can see on the right-hand side happens to be in our platform, a way for students to connect with each other virtually through a feed, as well as chat and messaging. As giving students just one more way that they can build some of those connections that may be a little bit less daunting for a subset of students than connecting with people in person. Outside of this research and other research, we still see that this COVID generation that is currently at college or university was notably impacted by the pandemic, and even how they engage and interact is still shifting. I still teach a course in the US, and I certainly see some of those differences at my university in just how students connect with each other. It is much more technology oriented now, so making sure that you have ways for them to do that at the institution as well, it may be beneficial, again, for a subset of your student population who is less likely to engage in person or feel comfortable engaging in person. Their preference may be to try to engage and connect with their peers through technology. One other element here is that roughly that same percentage of students find it difficult to contact and connect with classmates outside of class for studying or getting help, which ties right into what I was just talking about. There's more hesitation and even just a lack of knowledge of how they might be able to do that, perhaps, or again, needing to then identify which students are in their class. There's not an easy way for them to do that. They may not know how to get to a classmate and see if they can get some additional help or work together in group work or whatever it may be. Uh, Overall, one of the elements that came out is that students are looking for more support or are in need of additional support. When we look at that first circle, 57% of students feel overwhelmed by the number of things to keep track of at university. That's nearly 6 out of every 10 students. And I have to admit, as I first look at these results, I think back to my time at university, and it was busy. There was a lot going on. But I think the reality today is that students are busier than ever. More is coming at them from all aspects of their lives. And juggling coursework along with everything else that they're doing, whether it's extracurricular activities, whether some of them are working part-time. All of those are elements that they're needing to deal with, and they're feeling overwhelmed by the number of things that they have to keep track of, not just at university, but in their lives overall. And the amount of communications coming at them through social media and email communications and all the rest likely doesn't help as well. The other key element here, in which this is really eye-opening for me, and we saw similar data in the other surveys that we conducted, is the number of students that miss deadlines or forget about exams at least once or twice a semester. It's over 6 in 10 students. I think it was 59% of survey respondents missed a deadline on an assignment or forgot about an exam at some point during their term. That's a high percentage. Now, it was a little bit higher for colleges than universities. That likely makes sense. Colleges have more assignments than students do at the university. But over the course of an academic term, that's still a high percentage. And then nearly 2 out of 10 miss deadlines at least once a month. So that's definitely impacting their academic success. When we looked at those who were less likely to complete, uh, who indicated they were less likely to complete their degree, 82%, over 8 out of 10 students miss deadlines at least once or twice a term. So an additional 20% on top of the overall population. And then 1 out of 3 of those students miss deadlines once a month or more frequently than that. Uh, Again, we're starting to see very high percentages there. And then uh, it is a little bit of a question of what comes first. Are the students indicating that they're less likely to complete their degree because they're struggling academically? Or is this a result of other factors like their motivation, which we saw as one of the challenges that they identified that's causing them to miss some deadlines on assignments or forget about exams? But anything that you can do through technology or in other ways to highlight upcoming assignments and exams is going to be beneficial. Again, as a professor, uh, part of me thinks that students should be able to keep track of all of this on their own. The reality is not that, and I don't think it's fair to put myself in the mindset of when I was a student 25 years ago. I hate to say, and how things work then compared to today. Like I said at the outset, students have a lot going on. Sure, their education is a priority, but they're faced with much more than we were at that point. All right. Let me get my slide to work here. So let me talk overall about opportunities for this section, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the trends we saw specifically to technology. So first of all, look at ways to adopt a platform where students can see events, clubs, and other information they're interested in. I think a number of you have that type of platform available already, but make sure that it's kept up to date and that events and clubs are part of that platform so that you can really foster that extracurricular engagement of students. Look at ways to provide opportunities for students to build their network and connect with classmates. Some of the data that you saw clearly indicated that there's a bit of a gap for a subset of the student population in that they are less comfortable building a network and connecting with classmates in person or without some technology support. Look at ways to identify or to highlight, I should say, available student support resources. We talked about this early on, that students are indicating that they would like more mental health and counseling service support, more career service and internship support, more academic support services. And again, the question for you is then to think about how much do you already offer? Is it really that students would want more of those things, or is it just a lack of awareness, especially among those students who are struggling more, that there are resources that they can access that would help them be more effective and successful? Reminding students of deadlines and available resources. Again, we just talked about that, but the academic deadlines we covered in the last section of how many students miss assignments or exams. And then look at opportunities to highlight for students what they are doing outside of the classroom so that they can then identify those skills and highlight those skills on a curriculum vitae or as they start a job or career search as they get closer to graduation. Let's shift now a little bit and talk briefly about student perspectives on technology. So the first element we asked about were the number of systems and platforms and how students felt about those. About 3 out of 10 students feel there are too many systems and platforms that they have to use. This was actually not as high as I would have expected, to be honest with you. What we saw overall is that about 55%, I believe it was, of students felt that there were an adequate number of platforms, so they didn't feel that they would have to they were logging into too many systems. So that's actually good news. One of the things here to be thinking about is how many systems do they need to log into and use, and even if you have a single sign-on in place, how many different user interfaces do they have to adjust to? So if they're going from one system to another, and even if they're not having to sign in again, the platform will look different, right? The UX will look different in the platform, meaning there's a little bit of a barrier that we're creating because students then have to figure out where do they go for certain things in that platform, when in other platforms they know that it's in this location. Overall, I always suggest, this isn't specifically from the survey results, but I always recommend looking at ways to reduce the number of platforms to create that more seamless student experience. We did ask about how do students access campus information, and the primary way that was identified by students, and we asked them to choose one way. So this was not a multi-select like some of the other questions in the survey. The primary way was through a campus portal or a mobile app. You can see over 1 in 3 students indicated that that's how they access campus information, followed by about 1 in 4 that stated that they use the university or the institution website, I should say, to access information. So that taken together, that's about 6 in 10 students. That's your large, or I should say your majority of the respondent population is accessing information either through the campus app, campus portal, mobile app, or the website. So I think overall that's good news. That gives you 3 concrete areas to focus on. Email communications was mentioned by, as you can see, 17% of students. That was perhaps a little bit higher than I even thought, given some of the other results I'll talk about in a minute. And then social media was still identified as a key way that students access campus information. That's a little bit concerning to me because we know that there's not as much information available on social media, certainly as there is on your campus portal or your mobile app. But I would say here, take a look at your data for your various platforms to see where current students are accessing information, and then continue to encourage them to use whichever tool has the most up to date and most often updated content, as well as the broadest content. I would assume it would be your campus portal or your mobile app, but again, it may differ a little bit by institution. Uh, we did also ask students, though, do they feel that they would benefit from a platform that provides more elements to it in one platform? And you can see here overall, this was very positive. Some of that is perhaps not surprising, that we have students who prefer elements in a platform, in one platform instead of multiple platforms, but the percentages here are extremely high. So you can see over 3 in 4 students indicated that they would like to get reminders of upcoming exams in a platform that they access regularly, followed by grades in their courses, reminders of upcoming assignment due dates. Those tie into some of those areas we identified as where students are struggling. Information specific to their course of study, then over 6 in 10, access to campus information such as PC availability, maps, account balances, library services, and much more. So again, that one centralized platform where they can see a myriad of things that can really inform where the resources that are available, but also where they can access those resources. And then a little bit lower, but still more than the still a majority of respondents pointed to a calendar of club meetings and classes, and the ability to find and connect with classmates was mentioned by 6 out of 10 students. Going back to, again, that want to identify ways to connect with classmates in a virtual environment in addition to that in-person environment. We did also ask, again, around this broader platform, how students would feel about having a platform to see where they could see what events are happening along with the academic updates that they're looking for, and whether that would help them be more involved. You can see 3 out of 4 students said that it would be extremely or very helpful for them to be more involved. So really think about how you're providing information to students. And are there opportunities to commingle events, student organizations, along with academic updates to ensure that students see information presented to them where they're looking for information. And also you're encouraging that extracurricular engagement then by taking that approach, rather than having academic updates over here and then everything that is extracurricular related over here. Students aren't used to consuming data like that or information like that in 2 separate places in the rest of their lives. So if that's happening at their institution where they're studying, again, it will work for some students, but it's not how they're used to living their lives on a daily basis. So the more that you can combine that and bring that together into one platform, the higher the benefit for students, and the more likely that they will participate and engage, and then again, leading to their success. Now let's switch to email, one of my favorite topics, with a bit of sarcasm there. First of all, over 1 in 2 students feel that they receive too many emails from their institution. I would assume that that's probably not surprising to many of you. Certainly, as I think about my inbox, I receive a ton of communications, most of which are not relevant to me. And I assume this is the same for students. And I should add that this was specifically, they feel they receive too many emails from their institution. Now, having said that, 7 out of 10 students indicated that they would be more likely to read emails that are directly relevant to them, so more personalized to what they are looking for, information on their course of study, on dates and deadlines that are specific to them. Those types of reminders rather than more of the general communications that go to all students that may be relevant to a subset of them, but certainly not all students. And this is not easy to shift at an institution, the whole communication flow and communication approach. But I'd encourage you to be thinking about ways that you can better target your communications to students, because it is going to lead to higher engagement via email, as well as push notifications and all of the other channels you're likely using to communicate with students. The more relevant, the more likely we're to see the action. To the extent that you have control over emails that are being sent, I would encourage you to ask yourselves and others in your areas, is this content relevant to all students, or is this content relevant to a subset of students? And if it's a subset of students, identify ways to, or think about ways to identify those students so you can deliver the content specifically to them. We certainly try to do that on our side from Ready Education, but we don't always do that perfectly either. But looking at ways that we can tailor some of our email communications and other communications to those clients and prospective clients who are most likely to be interested in the content. Right, it's a challenge I think all of us face, but certainly for students, they are more likely to tune out messaging if it is not relevant to them. And that takes me to this next slide, which is around personalized email communication, or that's where I'm putting the focus. Because that was mentioned by over 1 in 2 students as their preferred communication method. We did explain what we meant by personalized email communications versus general broadcast email, which you see at the bottom of the set of the data set. with about only 1 in 4 students identifying that. And then message through their LMS or their virtual learning environment, the social media app, and text messaging are all on there by about 1 in 3 students. So again, you can see that the importance of that personalization. And then with that, let me just share some final thoughts and then happy to take any questions as well. So first of all, hopefully you've seen some of the opportunities here that there are ways to continue to foster community and belonging among student populations, and there are differences among student needs and what they're looking for. I just spent a lot of time talking about communication strategies and focusing on providing relevant content. I won't spend any more time on that. But looking at also identifying a platform where students can see events and clubs and also have the opportunity to interact with each other. Look at the ways that you're highlighting available campus resources, and are there ways to highlight them differently? Certainly at the beginning of the term, you'll want to put a high focus on making sure students are aware of those, especially for your new students at the institution. But then really think about, are there key times when it makes sense to highlight specific campus resources? For example, counseling may have a higher need around the end of the term when students are more stressed. So maybe you can put that, make that top of mind for students at that time of year again. And then helping students track commitments and deadlines to try to decrease the number of students who miss deadlines on assignments or forget about exams, impacting their level of student success and their opportunity to continue to be successful at the institution. Now, with that, I will open up the floor for any questions. I do see a couple that have come in so far, but please, again, if you have a question, feel free to submit it in the Q&A panel or in the chat. We'll keep an eye on both. In terms of, there was a question around sharing more detailed reports of results broken down by student type, university versus college. We do have a research report that we put together that has some more detail. So we will share that as a follow-up to this webinar. It doesn't have all of the detail of university and college. That's something we're looking at providing in the future. So keep an eye on that, and then we'll look at ways to do that. And then there was a question about just some of our product roadmap. As I mentioned at the outset, one of the things we're doing with these results is looking at ways that we can continue to refine our platform, or platforms, I should say, to meet student needs. So this was around relevant content and notifications. So that's something the product team is looking at. I'm not sure if it's something that has been roadmapped at this point, meaning put on our roadmap in addition to some of the functionality that's there, but it's something we can check on, and we'll get back to you through your client success manager on that. And then, Liv, do we have any other questions that have come in that you've seen come in while I've been talking?
Hey, yeah, we've had a really great question come in from Jay. He's actually asked two. So the first one is if you've got any information about the how many institutions made up the total sample, and any numbers regarding how many universities compared to how many colleges.
That is a really good question. Unfortunately, we do not. So the way that students were able to qualify for the survey, again, we used a national survey platform, and we asked, the first question we asked was a disqualification question. We asked them whether they are currently attending a college or university. And again, the survey was specific to the UK. So these were 500 individuals who responded that they were currently enrolled at a college or university, and that is how they made up the sample, but we don't, I believe, have geographical data beyond that. We do have the data point at the beginning about the percentage of the sample that attends a university versus a college. Again, I believe 51% of the surveyed population attends a university, and 36% maybe, I'd have to go back and look, are currently attending a college. but we don't have the number of universities and colleges because we didn't capture that data because we did want this to remain as anonymous as possible. And then I think I see the other note there. I think we touched a little bit on financial stress um, for students, but yeah, that is definitely a clear critical element in student success. And for university students, it was mentioned as the second highest challenge that they saw, and I believe it was fourth overall. So for college students, it was a little bit lower than for university students, but clearly a key challenge for all students as they look at continuing their studies and being successful.
Fantastic, thanks, Mako. And then we've also got another question from Jay about whether our research has indicated the possibility of geographical challenges that are related a bit more closely to the institution's location.
Yeah, on that one, because we don't know the institutions, we won't be able to dive into that for this survey. We will be doing another survey in less than a year, I would say. We usually try to do them in the fall each year. So this one will help us identify questions to ask in the next one. So those are good points that we may ask for a little bit more detail on some of the respondent locations to be able to look at, are there some of those differences? So good feedback and something we'll consider for a future survey.
Great. And then as far as I'm aware, currently we've got 2 more questions. So the first one is, how would you say that technology like what we offer at Ready Education can help first-year students with the transition from a structured secondary school experience to college or university, where the onus is more on the students to effectively structure their time for engaging with lessons and with campus life as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's a lot to unpack there, but I would say the first element that comes to mind for me is the importance of even orientation or that kickoff, that welcome week or whatever you may do at your institution to highlight all of the opportunities for students. And then if you can do some of that through technology and set up an onboarding, for lack of a better term, but a way for students to immediately see the technology that they should be looking at on a daily basis, where they can see their academic information as well as what's happening on campus. If you make sure that they understand that right from the starting point, it's more likely that they're going to continue to use those platforms throughout their 3 years at the institution. Leading to their success. So I think, especially for new students, you have a tremendous opportunity to introduce them to the right resources as they start their studies, and then that will help to ensure their success.
Fantastic. And then the final question is regarding engagement for mature students and those living off campus. And it's kind of, what advice would we give for leveraging technology to help those kind of students really find a circle of friends at university?
It's a good question as well. I don't have data specifically in the survey to talk about that, but I can just speak from my personal experience and what I've seen at other institutions. Is even where technology becomes more important for students who are more mature students. They are less likely to, especially if they're living off campus, I think you said, they're less likely to attend events on campus and build those connections. They're maybe not living with other students. So that's where technology and giving them the opportunity to connect with other students through technology becomes even more important. Seeing what students are in their classes and allowing them to chat or message them in a variety of ways and really build that community along with clubs and organizations that may have virtual meetings and virtual events. All of those elements are going to help those students feel like they're more a part of the community.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mako. Well, that seems to be all the questions that we've got at the minute. If anybody does have any more questions, please do feel free to drop us an email as well. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And I will add my contact information here. So if you do have questions to Liv's point, feel free to include them in an email to us or to me specifically. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn if you have further questions. I appreciate the time you spent with me this early afternoon. Again, we'll follow up with the recording, and then we'll also link to the research report that you can review as well. Thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.